I'm Rob Skinner, and this is the Rob Skinner Podcast. Today I'm talking to Pablo and Nicole Padilla, who lead the singles in the Los Angeles Singles Ministry. They also lead a group of singles in Orange County and serve on the International Service Team for Singles. They've directed 2 conferences, most recently the North American Singles Conference held in Anaheim, California in August of 2024. They do all of this while holding down full-time jobs. Find out how and why they do all this on the Rob Skinner Podcast. Welcome back to the Rob Skinner Podcast. My goal is to inspire you to live a no-regrets life, make this life count, and multiply disciples, leaders, and churches. I am really excited to have this next couple on because I've gotten to know them kind of indirectly through my son, James, who is a single and has gotten to know Pablo Padilla. And so, James has said, hey, Dad, you really got to talk to this guy, Pablo. He's really an amazing person. So they were kind enough to open up their schedule and talk to me today about their work in the singles ministry. Nicole and Pablo, welcome to the program.
Hey, Rob. It's good seeing you, man.
Thanks for having us.
Oh, it's great to have you guys on the program. Like I said, James speaks so highly of both of you guys, and I just thought I got to meet these guys. You guys are a pretty remarkable couple.
Oh, we love James. He's such a great man of God. I mean, that's when I think of him. Great convictions. We've had a couple breakfasts, and we've just been able to connect really, really well. Really impressive guy.
Yeah, thank you so much. How'd you guys become Christians?
Well, for me, in February of 1999, I was baptized, and who brought me out? It's really special. My mom. My mom brought me out. It's a quick little funny story. I was 15 years old at the time, and my mom told me, I've been going to this church, and I had heard about it. She mentioned a lot of great things about it, and she said, do you want to come out? And I kept brushing her off as a typical rebellious teen, but then she coaxed me one time by saying, well, we're going to do a New Year's party, and we're going to be meeting with the Spanish ministry. And so I thought, wow, food, maybe cute, girls my age at the time, right? Teenagers. So I went with just bad, selfish intentions, but it was the most boring New Year's thing I've ever been to in my life because I went in there, everyone was dressed in suits. They were dressed to the T. They were praying. They were making goals for the year 1999. And I just felt bored. But what was really encouraging was the team leader there at the time was comparing Jesus to Braveheart, the iconic figure, Michael Wallace, and how he was heroic and gave up his life for the Scottish people. And so I ended up studying the Bible. I saw the movie with him, and I thought it was heroic. And he said Jesus is a million times better than William Wallace. And so I said, you know what? I'm going to follow this Jesus guy. I studied the Bible, and I got baptized in February of 1999 as a 15-year-old teen.
Wow, that's awesome. Okay, so that dates you a little bit. So you're 40 right now?
I'm actually 41.
Okay.
Yeah, 41 years old, born in 83.
You're just getting into your prime. I graduated from high school in 1983, so that's a while back. Okay, how about you, Nicole?
Yeah, funny enough, my ex-boyfriend invited me out. We started dating in my senior year of high school. We get into our freshman year of college, and I want to break up with him. And he's like, wait, come to my church. But what I didn't know is he wasn't really coming to church, like he was technically a fall away. And so I was like, okay, well, sure, one last ditch effort. And I was going to a church. I was totally devoted to my own church that my family was going to. And so we go, and of course the sisters in the college ministry just loved up on me, pulled me They followed up with me. They studied the Bible with me. They prayed with me. They did everything that my family church didn't do, like actually read the Bible and study it and challenge me and call me out directly. And so, me and my ex definitely broke up, which I know you're happy about.
Super happy.
And that never materialized. It was literally just my entryway to become an actual disciple. But as I was studying the Bible, I was really challenged with believing that I was already a Christian, right? I had prayed Jesus into my heart as a 9-year-old kid. I prayed that, hey, I really want my favorite toy to come to heaven with me. And that was my version of being saved. And I believed in God. And, but of course I become a teen and now I'm faced with all these temptations. And so then my Christianity didn't have any face value at that point. So really studying the Bible, I was at my lowest as a, pray Jesus in your heart type Christian. And so it was very clear I needed to become a disciple. And that was in 2005, January of 2005.
Okay, yeah. 2005. Okay, great. Now, are you guys close in age? You guys right around the same age?
Yeah, we're separated by 2.5 years.
Yeah.
Okay. Nicole right now.
I was 18.
Yeah.
It was my freshman year of college.
Okay,
yeah.
So you guys both really started young in the kingdom. That's awesome. Now, how did you guys get together? Tell us how you guys met and fell in love and got married.
It always makes us laugh because my version is very masculine and obviously favors me, but her version is just as legitimate. She got baptized in January of 2005. I actually got dumped by my ex-girlfriend in January of 2005, interestingly enough. And so I was brokenhearted for a couple weeks, and my minister at the time was training me and encouraged me, you should really go on dates right away. Don't wait. Don't sulk in this. It wasn't a perfect relationship, but I know you could get back in there and start, going on dates. And I hadn't gone. I was dating for 2.5 years, so it was kind of still a little new to me, but I said, okay, I'm going to do this. And so I had taken the sisters in my Bible talk, in the campus Bible talk I was a part of at the time. And one sister told me, why don't you visit this other ministry, and just come and mingle with our campus students. And they were doing a birthday party honoring their former campus ministry leader and a dear friend, Elizabeth, at the time. And so funny enough, I go in there and then I meet her and I'm struck by her. She's beautiful. And I said, wow, who is she? And I thought maybe she was a disciple from another part of our church, but they told her, no, that's Nicole. Nicole just got baptized last month, the same month that I got dumped.
Wow.
And I said, oh, shucks, she's so young, in the faith. And I said, I'm just going to wait. And so Nicole was baptized into the Long Beach ministry, which Steve and Charlie Stevenson led at the time. They are currently now our trainers. And so they told us to take it nice and slow, nice and easy. And every day it got better and better. She met all my friends. I met all her friends. I took out all her roommates and got a good word in, and they supported me. And long story short, I asked her to be my girlfriend December of 2005, 11 months after meeting her.
Wow.
Yeah. It's a funny story because it's like, we just met at a birthday party. He was just trying to meet new people, make new friends. And, I don't remember meeting him, but obviously he totally remembers meeting me. But everything was a blur. I was a young person.
Yeah.
I was literally just trying to figure out, how do I do this repentance thing? I just got baptized. How do I love God? And so I had to go through definitely some of my own challenges as a young Christian. But I definitely made some strides, had to cut off, it's like when it says cut off your hand if it causes you to struggle. I had to have those moments in my, young Christian first few months. And so I felt like then my heart was ready to accept such a blessing. I literally felt like when he asked me to be my girlfriend later that year, I was like, wow, God, thank you for this blessing. I feel like I just don't deserve it. And so I'm grateful that we dated 3 years and 3.5. And then he proposed literally the week after I graduated college. He was like, okay, let's go.
Couldn't wait.
That's awesome. Okay, great. So you guys have been married how many years now?
Since August 2009. So that puts us at 15 years.
Wow, 15 years. Any kids?
No,
No, by
none right now.
choice.
Yeah, by choice,
Okay,
actually.
so you guys are just gonna remain without kids. Okay. Now, what do you
Mhm.
guys do for a living?
So I'm a licensed marital family therapist. I do mental health. I've been doing this since 2009. Got my master's degree. Got licensed here in the state of California. Hoping to one day maybe get licensed nationally so I can move and help many disciples primarily or those in need all over the country. But that's what I do from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday.
And I'm in human resources. I've been doing recruiting and human resources for the last 12 years. So I love HR. It's a people person type of work. And so that's what I do for my full time job.
Okay, so double income, no kids. You guys live in what part of the Southern California?
We live in Newport Beach right now. We own
Oh
a
my!
small condo here.
You own a house in Newport Beach?
A condo, a
Oh
2-bedroom condo.
oh my gosh. Okay, how'd you afford it? I want to know. Like, how'd you do that?
Yeah, we got very fortunate in 2017. Personally, my conviction, I always wanted to rent for the rest of my life. I wanted to be like Jesus and Paul, that they never, at least, I never seen a passage that supports that they owned a physical home here on this planet. So I wanted to be like that. I know some people could look at that and call it old school or whatnot, but I just didn't feel like I needed any pride in owning a home. However, my wife is very smart, and we went through Financial Peace University, Dave Ramsey's financial course, in I believe it was 2016, 2017. And I did see one of the videos, one of the classes that taught about investment. And so we did have a little bit of savings, and we packaged a deal to buy a small home in Los Angeles. And with the pandemic, it just grew in value by a couple $100,000. And so we flipped that and used the equity to buy in Newport Beach, because in 2020 we moved from Los Angeles County to nearby Orange County, and we thought it would just be wise for us to invest in a home instead of spending the money in the rent.
Heck yeah, that's awesome. Okay, I'm totally sidetracked on this podcast. I love Newport Beach. That is so beautiful.
We're very lucky.
How far are you guys from the water?
Oh, I could look out and see it.
No,
Yeah.
stop it. You got to be kidding me.
We go as
It's-
much as we can.
It's
We
a
walk,
8-minute walk?
probably.
Yeah, we just got to go out of our condominium here, and then we just walk down the hill, and it's a couple streets down to the water. So we're very blessed.
That's awesome. Wow, congratulations. That's great. Okay. So, let me just talk a little bit. So you guys chose not to have kids by choice. What led to that decision?
Yeah, great question. So Nicole and I come from both very dysfunctional families: alcoholism, drug abuse, domestic violence. And when we were teenagers, we had to take care of our younger siblings. So I have 3 younger siblings than me. When I was growing up, Nicole, same thing, all girls on her end. And so when mom, dad were away, I had to cook for them. My wife did the same. We had to fend for ourselves. So a lot of our youth was, I say, stolen. It was just not the ideal youth. Although we did some ideal things, we biked and had some fun moments. For the most part, we were just working. I started working at 14 years old, helping a carpenter, and I got paid $20 a day. And so I was thrilled that by Saturday I would have $100 in my pocket as a 14, 15-year-old. That meant a lot to me at the time in the 90s. So all of that, I didn't enjoy the Boy Scouts. I see kids who play Pee Wee football or high school football. I wish. I ran track in high school, taught me about endurance, but it wasn't a sport that I enjoyed. I did it because I missed signing up for both the baseball and the football team. And so that when we started dating and we're engaged, the question came up, and someone had asked, "Hey, Nicole, do you want to be a mother?" And she actually nodded her head gently and peacefully, like, "No, I don't have to be a mom." And same thing for me. Pablo, did you want to ever be a father? And I said, I don't yearn for that right now. Who knows? Maybe things will change. But we made the decision when we were engaged because, right before you get married, you have these life talks, right? Do you want to have kids? Do you not? And so at the time we said no, and for 15 years, it's been the same answer. Every year we just say, we're good. And now I'm in my 40s, I'm 41. Nicole's close to there. And it's probably going to be remaining the same decision, right, babe?
Yeah, I pray so. I'm like, Lord have mercy, please.
Yeah.
I'm like, I love my life. I'm like, please, no, and it's fun because we love to be auntie and uncle, and we have so many spiritual babies in the church, and we feel like we pour ourselves out into other people, and I think that allows us the freedom to be able to have the emotional bandwidth, the time bandwidth.
That's right.
Because I felt like when I got baptized, I wanted to be a mom all the way up until I became a disciple. Then I felt like the whole world opened to me. I was like, wow, like I have so many more choices. I can really choose my own life now. And so I felt like, actually, no, I don't want kids. I did have to take care of somebody else's kids in a sense. And so I'm actually grateful we made this choice. I look back and I don't regret it. And people are, we've gotten so much pushback on this. Just the comfort, like, are you sure you're missing out on the joy of kids? Like, is there something wrong with you? And it's like, no, this is our choice. And so we really try to empower other couples that also don't want to have kids, because they're kind of quiet about it because it's not socially accepted right now.
That's right.
And so I just like, hey, if you don't talk to us, we'll love up on you.
That's good. That's great. That's awesome. Yeah. How'd you guys get involved in the singles ministry?
Great question. So what Nicole and I did for the most part is we served in the campus ministry when we were dating. We co-led together, leading our university in Cal State Dominguez Hills. Nicole was baptized and reached out in Cal State Long Beach. And so it was campus all day and all night. And then when we got married, there was a need in the teen ministry, and we helped also the young marrieds. And my trainer had told me, Pablo, if you want to really be a well-rounded evangelist one day, I had not been appointed evangelist at that time, but he encouraged me, you might want to serve in almost all the life stages you can, just to get some experience. And there was an opening to help one of the ministries in one of our services. And Nicole and I started leading that ministry, and it was predominantly single. And it was people from all kinds of backgrounds and people who had needs that we could not relate to. And it did take some faith to work with them and listen to their needs and where they fit in this society. And it was just a unique challenge. And believe it or not, the first few months I hated it because I couldn't relate with them. Some of their struggles and the things that they had brought up. At first I thought in some certain cases with the brothers that I could speak of, it just seemed like there's some needs that I couldn't meet. But what was amazing is that we built a great coalition with them, and we really partnered. And I think not having kids helped them relate to us. And so when we started to click, we were starting to get Bible studies. They would challenge me. They would say, Pablo, let's wake up at 5 a.m. and pray so that God could bless. And I said, you know what? That's great. I haven't done this in years, since the days of campus. And the singles were on fire. And these were some men who had to work graveyard shifts as security guards and whatnot. And so what ended up happening was we just fell in love with them, and we've never looked back. And that was in 2015. It's been almost 10 years.
Wow. Okay. So 9 years working with the singles.
That's right.
Okay. Tell me, what are some of the biggest challenges facing Christian singles today?
I think the first one that comes to mind, and I hear it more from the sisters, is this idea of being seen. So SEEN, right? Seen. They feel that they're not being noticed in our churches. Even if we take this question to a secular hypothetical situation, they're usually overlooked. And I can see that from them. Although I was not a true single, I was single as a campus student, and I was a master's student. Then I got married to Nicole. I can't lie and say that I was in the singles full time, if you will. But one of the things that I do notice from them is that they sometimes feel overlooked and they don't have a part in society. It goes from their teenagers and their college students, then they find their boyfriend or girlfriend, and they end up getting married, have kids. And it's just kind of this time of their lives that gets eclipsed usually. And so that really hurt me. I hurt for them. And I was just curious, like, wow, that is a phenomenon. How do we bring you front and center and help you feel more special, because I don't want anyone to feel left out in our churches. And we started doing some really incredible events together. But one of the biggest needs is just them feeling like they're being overlooked or not noticed, and they want to be seen and acknowledged. And that's been a challenge the last 9 years for the singles ministry.
Yeah. I mean, even to add to that, I think in a lot of ways, it's, and I don't even think it's our church, and it's probably not even Christianity in general. It's just society, right? Is where does a single have their place? We just came from, I mean, maybe this is the new generation where, I mean, everyone used to get married. There was, who's single? Like, you're single only because you're a widower. And so now people are choosing to be single, or that's just kind of what's happening in their life because they haven't found that person. And so they're like, well, what is that place? Like, yeah, what is that place for me? But I think what's also happening is if they want to get married, they're feeling like, what is wrong with me? And it's not that there's anything wrong with you. And then people perpetuate it. Oh, well, what's wrong, sister? Or what's wrong, brother? Like, you know, have you not repented of something? Like, what do you need to change in order? And it's like, oh, like this cycle, you know? And it's like, oh, there's nothing wrong with being single. It's a beautiful part. And so I think there's this discontentment that I'm missing out on something that my friends, but I'm like, your friends are also single. You have a lot of single friends. So to say all your friends are married is not a true fact either. But then also too, looking at, okay, if you want to get married, I think what I've noticed is they're putting the blame on God. And it's like, oh no, like God doesn't give, like, does God really give you a spouse? I think he allows you to choose a spouse.
Yeah, that's right.
He's not, because at the end of the day, you're going to be at that altar saying, hey, I chose this person. So you have to be intentional. And so I think what happens is then people want the perfect spouse. They basically want Jesus. They want to marry Jesus. Well, no, you're already married to Jesus. You got baptized, right? Like, and so they have to self-reflect and go, is there maybe a piece in me that I want this other person to fulfill that they can't fulfill? And is there a piece in my heart that's missing? Is there a piece in my past or my trauma or my pain that I haven't processed and dealt with that I'm actually trying to fulfill in someone else, or they're triggering or whatever? I think there's so much in that that we could probably take this whole podcast to talk about that.
Yeah.
Okay, so not feeling seen, not feeling like they're being recognized, kind of being overlooked, not only in church, but just in society in general. Kind of like, it's like a pass-through ministry. Like you're kind of in a lobby waiting for something to happen in your life, and you're just kind of reading magazines while life is happening. So just people feeling like, okay, this is a temporary stage rather than a permanent position in life, or at least a long-term position in life.
That's right.
On the flip side, like when you talk to singles, what are the opportunities? Like, what do you see as the benefit of being a single, the advantage? I mean, certainly the Apostle Paul considered it a gift to be single. What's your take on that?
No, I agree. I think, Nicole and I have very real talks, and I've told her, if something ever happens to me, if you want to remarry, you're more than happy to remarry. I support you from heaven, if you will. Like, you can go ahead and remarry. And we were talking, and it was kind of a funny discussion. Like, not that she was already thinking of who, but it was more of like, you know what? I need a leader that's going to lead me, in such a way to do great, ambitious things for God. And that was one of the things that I felt was missing in the singles ministry. So when we started talking to these brothers that I worked with, they had dreams, but they had been buried. And so one of the joys that I had, where I felt we struggled with the singles ministry, was that they do have ambitions, that it's deep down in there. So when you started talking to them, they're the ones that brought up the ideas about conferences. Hey, wouldn't it be great if we all just went to Vegas? And I started thinking and scratching my head, well, usually we don't do a lot of conferences in Vegas, not these big ones, right? Maybe some local ministries might do conferences there, but okay. And so we started thinking, and same thing with Arizona, and same thing with San Diego, and we did a 5K for San Diego. All these ideas were born from the singles ministry. And so they have an untapped potential because of their time. Many of them are very generous. We had a dear sister, Laura Martinez, who passed away years ago here in the LA churches, and she left quite a bit of money to be able to help her region. It's known as the Lighthouse region, and it's based in the east part of LA. And that was one of her legacies. And she died as a single woman, very professional, did very well in her career, left an incredible legacy. And now the sisters are really stepping up there. And so one of the biggest things I love about the singles ministry is that they have untapped potential, whether it's time, money, talent, ideas, and also ambition, because a lot of them are dreaming again, and that's really encouraging to see in them.
Okay. Just on a personal level, like what's been the most challenging for you as a disciple? I mean, you guys really seem well put together. You're a very handsome couple. Where's God really tested you? Like, where have you been refined?
I think right now I'm a very ambitious person myself. People like you, Rob, people like Sean Wooden, people who just take the kingdom further is one of my dreams. And for 21 years, I stayed in the same region here in Los Angeles, and it was great. Don't get me wrong. It was awesome. It was a beautiful experience. I will always know it as my spiritual home. And in 2020, Nicole and I, when we were in the pandemic, we saw ourselves, what are we doing with our lives? It's great to be loyal to our local ministry, but we also got to put ourselves out there, put ourselves on podcasts, be able to lead conferences and retreats. It was kind of dead, if you will. At least I could speak to the singles ministry here in Los Angeles. We were not meeting. Obviously, everything was on Zoom. And so we just challenged ourselves, you know what, let's just move to a nearby ministry, see how that would go for us, which honestly, the last 4 or 5 years, it's been great, right, babe?
Awesome.
It's been tremendous. So we feel now the call to go somewhere else. So I think the biggest struggle is sometimes I believe we hold ourselves back. And also when there's been division, there's been division in some ministry experiences we've had. And it's just been really heartbreaking, when you see mentors leave and they have their reasons and you validate their reasons, but you also maybe don't agree with their decisions. You wish it was done a different way. So for me, divisions and being held back were the most difficult things over my last 21 years. But the pandemic really woke up all the more a beast inside of us of ambition that, you know what, we can be creative and do amazing things for God. And so that's what we look forward to.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And I think just I think this is more of an ongoing challenge for me. And I would say I'm probably pretty high functioning, but just my own mental health. I mean, it's funny that I'm married to a licensed marital therapist. Great. Woohoo!
Yeah.
The benefit I get is he does not do therapy on me, but he does listen very well.
That's good.
Yeah. No, there are some times where he's like, babe, can I ask you a few questions? And I'm like, oh, okay, now I know it's coming. I'm like, these are very different than like general questions.
Sure.
There's a therapist hat and there's a husband hat, there's a friend hat, there's a count. Anyways, all sorts of. So, but I think what I appreciate being my other half, being in the mental health world, is that I'm faced with that side, and I can see the opportunity for me to work on that. And so I usually run very anxious. So my heart rate is pounding, maybe I'm sweating, I'm feeling hot, like just all the physical sensations that I get now, from anxiety. And so then I get short with people. So I've said things to people in my ministry that have not been friendly, and I've had to apologize, or I have not been loving or attentive or being in the moment. I'm like the, who is it, Martha and Mary? Like, I'm like the one in the kitchen, like, I can't believe you're not helping me, Martha. Like, like, come on.
Mm-hmm.
And so as a Christian, I found that like, do. I just want to, like this anxiety is almost like a motivator. Now, anxiety is a motivator, right? It's actually a good emotion that God gave us. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Now, that's another problem I have, is that society is like, oh my gosh, you feel anxiety, there's something wrong with you, you need to be on medication. It's like, no. Like, God actually put it in our bodies for a reason. Let's just manage it, right? And it's not, yeah. So anyway, what I've been learning is, even being a leader in the church, having a full-time job, having a busy schedule, not having kids, but having lots of spiritual kids in the church to take care of, is spending that time with God to be able to go, okay, I trust you. I'm going to find peace in you. I'm going to hold on to your promises, because there's just times where I'm like, I'm going to rip somebody's head off. And it's probably going to be Pablo's or mine first before this. So I haven't been kind to myself. I haven't been kind to others in my anxiety. I'm like, this has got to change. And so what I've really done is, I think during the pandemic, I felt like, I know a lot of people had a really tough time, but if you didn't, I relate to you, because I actually grew out of the pandemic. I exercised, I got therapy, I read,
a lot of books.
Yeah,
Nicole loves to read.
Oh my goodness. And so I think what I really did is I journaled and I worked on my mental health so that I can get out of the pandemic successfully. So I can get out of the pandemic and go, wow, I feel great as a human being. And now I'm still on that continual journey. And so now I can say, wow, I'm definitely more in tune with the way my body physically responds to anxiety, stress, overwhelm, whatever type of, those types of feelings that people don't necessarily like to feel. I go, okay, I'm feeling it. Why do I feel it? Okay, let me pray about it. Let me journal this out. Let me put this right here so I can go meditate about it the next day. Let me spend some time. So instead of it being like, like a conflict, I'm more partnering with those pieces of me, those parts of me that come out, so I can process it.
Yeah. So just kind of accepting rather than fighting it, just saying, okay, this is part of me. I'm going to work on it and accept it as it is.
That's right.
Okay.
Absolutely.
So let's just talk a little bit about the challenges of working in the ministry and two secular jobs that are high powered. I mean, you're supporting yourselves in one of the most beautiful areas of the country, in the world. How do you manage that? I mean, that's a real challenge there. Did you say you're an evangelist as well, Pablo?
Yes, we got trained and appointed in April of 2018. So obviously the training had come way before that, but we were blessed to be appointed evangelist and women's ministry leader April of 2018. And so
how awesome is that? Congratulations.
Oh, thanks. It meant a lot to us. That was one of my dreams.
And not working full time. I mean, we're not being in the ministry full time, like in the LA church, which I feel like, I was like, whoa, is this even possible? Like, wow, so.
Yeah. And side note, that ties in with how do we deal with our Bi-Vocational ministry. When Nicole and I got married, it was our wedding date is August 30th of 2009. That's our anniversary. Well, we had a big conference, funny enough, here in Orange County in 2009 at the beginning of August. It was August 1st through the 3rd, and it was entitled The Whole World Will Know. And so the International Campus Conference was here. Thousands of students were here. It was incredible. And we were in a mixer just to kind of know what's out there, because we've never been in the full-time ministry. And my dream was one day to be in the full-time ministry. And so we got met by a couple who wanted to hire us potentially to lead their campus ministry and a Spanish ministry. And so we did the interview process. We spoke to them a week later. And I was excited because the evangelist at that state said, well, once you go on your honeymoon, you're not taking a flight back to Los Angeles. You're going to be taking a flight back to your new city, where you're going to be a minister, and I'm going to train you, and then I'll appoint you. And so Nicole basically got cold feet, and it was a good thing, because she was like, I don't know if I feel that this disruption in life is going to be good. We're already going through a major adjustment of being married. And so I got a lot of advice, and I didn't want to hear it at first, because I'm one of those, hey, give me the one suitcase challenge. I'll go 1 year, 2 years. What do you need? I'm kind of ramble style of faith in that way. But I got a lot of advice, and they're like, look, if you already got married, you're going to get married soon. And if you're already married and now you're going to do another disruption by moving to a whole new state you've never lived in before, you and Nicole have no family there. And yes, you're going to be living your dream, Pablo, but is that Nicole's dream? So we had to sit down and have those really tough conversations. So one of the things that I asked her, we declined the position, even though we got selected. I just told her, well, it sounds like we'll never be full-time ministers because of the situation, at least right now in the short term. And she says, you're right. I want to be bivocational ministers. And I said, well, let's do this. We can be bivocational ministers, so we'll both have full-time jobs. We'll self-support. Maybe they'll give us a stipend here or there. But one thing I ask you is, can we lead in high-level capacities? Because I feel like I was born to make impact. And my wife agreed. She saw like, yes, it'll be a little more stressful, but we can do it. And so one of the tricks that we do is it's called the rule of 168. We basically came up with it as part of our Stilos bivocational training program. And basically the rule is 24 hours a day times 7 days a week equal 168. And so we get 8 hours of sleep each night, right, babe?
Yeah.
That's something we work really hard on. Mm-hmm. Then we work 40 hours a week, typically. We were hired on here at Orange County to help serve the singles ministry. And we are also leading a small ministry called Coastline Church of Christ. And that's roughly 80 members. And so we only are tasked with 10 hours a week. So I work 50 hours. And I do the math. And a lot of people would already be hearing and thinking that's a lot. But I'm actually left with about 72 hours free time the whole week, actually, if you do the math. With a good night's sleep, I work full time, I do the ministry, and I'm very disciplined. Nicole and I work on that discipline all the time. We go jog for our mental health. We do yoga. We are able to check in on each other. Hey, are you feeling burnout this week? Let's take a day off to make sure that we pace ourselves. And that rule of 168 really has helped us out.
Oh, 100%. I'm like, it's like when you do the math, you're like, wait, I have 70 hours? Like, what am I doing with that time, right? And I mean, it's funny because I walk into church, and I mean, any one of us could probably walk into church and you probably hear someone talking about the TV show that they watch, and they're all like, oh, The Bachelor, who got off? Like, I don't even know what's going on with that, right? Or whatever it is that the newest show that's out there, and they're like, oh, have you seen this on Netflix? We're like, no, we don't have
social
Netflix.
Media.
Like,
a lot of people just are... And it's okay. We don't judge anyone. But for us, if we're going to serve at this capacity, you see behind us the mantle. Usually a TV would go on here, but we don't have a TV that we see. And I do watch sports. I'll catch the highlights. The guys will be intentional. We'll go to Buffalo Wild Wings, let's say, and grab a beer, some wings and tacos and just watch the game. I'll watch the second half and whatnot. But we're intentional with our time. We're not just kind of wasting it. And so that helps us with our mental health to be able to navigate a full-time job, have full-time hearts for the ministry, and we'll see what the future holds. But for right now, that's our current practice and the way we live our lives.
If a person wanted to be a bivocational evangelist or women's ministry leader, give me 5 tips. Give me just 5 bullet points. What does it take?
Yeah, no, that's a great question. So the first one I would be is that you got to be flexible with your time. And so if you have that ambition, right, and maybe I should have started with that. I think having that ambition to want to make an impact will be very beneficial for you because that's your drive. And then the next thing is the flexibility, being able to be flexible with your job. So you may want to choose a career that's not so demanding. I'm very privileged that as a therapist, if my last client is at 2, I still get paid till 5 p.m. But my last client is at 2. So now I'm free after 3 and I can make some phone calls for the ministry or maybe work on my sermon for the week or being able to plan a conference and make those follow-up calls. And so I think, first of all, it's the drive. Number 2 is the flexibility. And then I think the last 3 are you got to be able to financially be savvy and save some money because you don't know what the future holds. You may need to do more ministry and less of your career, or vice versa. Maybe you need to work more and less ministry. And so always finding out the balance. And I think the last 2 is, my wife talked about the mental health. You need to have a mental health balance, big time. You need to be able to pace yourself, have good boundaries with the ministry, tell them when you're available, when you're not available. Nicole and I practice a Sabbath every Saturday. So of those 72 hours that we have free, 24 hours straight are dedicated to just us and God. That's it. We try to tell our ministry, please don't contact us. I actually have to go back to work on Monday morning at 8 o'clock. So does Nicole. So most ministers take their Sabbath on Mondays, which is totally fine. If you can do that, great. But for us, it's Saturday. That's our day. And we even tell family, hey, if you have a birthday party, we'll celebrate it Friday or maybe Sunday afternoon. If there's something that has to happen Saturday, there's a conference, let's say a marriage retreat, we go, of course. We're not going to boycott that. But Nicole and I then will flex our Thursday night or Friday night, make that our date night, partial Sabbath, if you will, and that keeps us together. And so I think with all those 4 or 5 tips I just provided, it really helps us. And I think it could help anyone to have that ability to be a bivocational minister.
Yeah.
So ambition for impact, flexible with your time, financially savvy, and having good boundaries to protect your mental health.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. So we get this question so many times. How do you guys do it? I mean, we get it all across the board. I mean, we've had people willing to move from out of state to come here to be like, I want to learn. How are you managing your time? How are you managing your life? How do you have a full-time job? Because there's so many small churches out there, and God, you do the small church conference. It's like sometimes you can't afford a minister, and so you've got to be a bivocational minister. You've got to self-support until it can be, or sometimes you just stay self-supporting. And that's why we started creating, the Stelos ministry, because Stelos in Greek means pillar. And so how can we raise up more pillars that can hold up the church while having their full-time job? Because it's possible. I literally see, like, how in the world did we sacrifice so much time, money, energy into the church, yet we still got promotions in our job, we still got raises, we're still able to financially buy a house. Like, I just think like God totally blessed us and took care of us. It is possible. The world doesn't make it possible. It's like one or the other. It's like you sacrifice here, that means you lose in this other area. God doesn't lose. God wins. He wins in all categories. So if you sacrifice in this area, God is absolutely going to refresh and give to you in this area. There's an abundance with God. God owns everything. Like, he has everything. So we live that out. So we're like, how do we make this possible for other people? And that's where, like, we need to build a ministry out of this. So we're currently building that right now and posting content on social media.
Okay. And that's what the Stelos ministry is. It's kind of something, your brainchild, to help bivocational ministers develop their ministry or help with people who are interested.
Absolutely. Our dream is in Galatians 2, Paul is talking about Peter and John and all the brothers, and he commends them as pillars. And so I was curious because I was thinking about using that name, pillars, because we need more pillars to raise up God's kingdom. And so, but I was just curious. I was like, what does pillars mean in the Greek? Because I'm studying all these words. And when it came up as stelos, I really loved that word. And I thought, wow, that could be catchy. And I started sharing that idea with Nicole that we need to duplicate ourselves. I appreciate your ambition, Rob. You're trying to multiply leaders and churches and really grow God's kingdom. And you're at the forefront of that. And we thought about doing something similar, but with the bivocational ministers, because an evangelist told me, and I love this evangelist to death, he's amazing, Steve Stevenson, is that, hey, it was great to put a church in every major country of the world, and that's awesome. But in order to truly evangelize the rest of the world, we're going to need bivocational ministers. And I'm so impressed by leaders in the Philippine churches and the Middle East and parts of Africa, parts of Latin America, where people are doing the bivocational ministry because they have to. There is no money. They have no
totally
support.
Agree. Absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's great what you're doing, and I did that for 8 years in Ashland in planting a church, and it's going to take that to help plant churches up and down the Central Valley of California. I'd love to get churches all throughout the I-5 corridor.
That's right. Yeah.
And yet it's going to take people who are not full-time, but who are working at least part-time, and then maybe they get partial support from others, maybe funding in the ministry. That's fantastic. How'd you guys get interested in organizing the conferences you have, the North American Singles Conference? I mean, that's a load.
Well, in 2020, when we were talking to our team, and that's really the fifth component to bivocational ministry that really helps us is the teamwork that we have. We just started building the LA Church Leadership Coalition. Steve and Charlie Stevenson at the time handed the reins over to us because they were very busy with local responsibilities. And so Nicole and I offered, hey, if you need us to lead the ministry, we had been doing it, I think, for 6 to 8 months, right? Already on our own. Steve and Charlie just couldn't make the meeting. So, and it was because they had great hearts. It's just, they just didn't have the time. And so we were subbing in and we basically started to help out with the singles ministry. So one of those thoughts was, man, we're in the pandemic and for 2 years we couldn't have conferences and a lot of singles came up to us. Let's please have a conference, and all ideas were thrown out. And so I said, let's do it. And the reason why we chose Las Vegas for 2022 was entitled Oasis. And we were very ambitious because some of the singles were like, we would love to have a big time speaker. We never get a big time speaker. And I don't know if that was true, but I felt their pain. And I said, well, what if we called Sean Wooden? And they said, what? Are you crazy? He's in the middle of a war. He would say no. And I said, I don't know, but if I was Sean Wooden, I would love a reason to get out of that mess right now and to get a flight somewhere to the US. So we reached out to him. He graciously confirmed. The reason why we chose Las Vegas too, it was open at the time. A lot of spaces in California were closed up. We just have so many people, and the COVID pandemic really just, for safety reasons, people were just kind of not allowing big events like that to happen. And we just went with a bold church. The Las Vegas church was super supportive. Delano and Nadine Stewart have become one of our greatest friends. And they're like, you could have it here, but it's a drive. And we took the chance. That's where I met your son. And that's how we ended up deciding to do the conferences for the singles.
Yeah, we really saw a need. They really wanted fellowship, and they love it when they all get together. And I think these conferences, I hear from the smaller churches, they get that fellowship that they normally don't have because maybe they're in a church that has 3 other singles. And then also too, then it kind of gives them more variety if they are looking for a spouse, or they're just wanting to have fun and make new friends. I feel like they just really needed it. They needed that fellowship out of being closed off for so long.
Mm-hmm.
You guys have, I mean, you're just entering your prime. I mean, I consider 40 to 60 like the prime years. But looking back on the first 40 years, what are you the most proud of?
I think for me, my dream was to be an evangelist. And, as a 15, 16-year-old, seeing the K&N videos, seeing people being appointed, sent off, I thought it was heroic. I think people who are evangelists, church starters, they're the game changers in the kingdom of God. And I think everyone plays a valuable role. But for me I had told my wife, I want to be appointed. There's just something special about it. It's in the Bible. It's, maybe one day we'll be appointed elders. We don't know. We have not had that conversation, but I bring that up because I just think it's something beautiful when we raise up more leaders. And it was always my ambition to do that. And so I really appreciate my wife's support. And so I think for me personally, I love being a licensed therapist. I love being a husband. I love helping churches in different ways, whether it's through Hope Worldwide nonprofit work or the orphanage work we do in Baja California. And obviously, I'm proud to be who I am. But I think at the end of the day, the biggest thing I'm really proud of is that we got appointed as evangelists and women's ministry
That's
leaders.
Awesome. That's really fantastic.
Yeah. And I know, gosh, I mean, when I always think of like the thing I'm most proud of, it's people. I mean, people are why we even serve in the church. And I mean, God built that within our hearts to just be so interconnected. And when I think of a sister who was in the singles ministry, and she moved in with us, and she didn't know how to drive and didn't have her driver's license and was under employed. And so having her move in, and we kind of like adopted her in a sense, it's like we call her we were co-parenting with another couple that was also mentoring her. So it's kind of funny, but, and now then to take this person who probably on the outskirts, if you were to look at her from the outside, go, oh, she's definitely not leadership potential. There's a lot of things that she needs help with, but investing in her, loving her, reminding her how amazing she is and all her talents, and then giving her opportunities to throw an event here based on her passions, or lead this here, or speak here, or play the piano here, is now then to see her then become a singles leader in our ministry,
Mhm.
and then to see her, fulfill her dream of getting married, and now she's leading like all these like dancing events because that's what we're about. And I'm just like, oh, like when you see that, when you see
Mhm.
someone go from one of their lowest points, and then you see them flourishing and abundant and just feeling loved by God, and then loving others and giving back. I just like, it's like, one of my best friends, it's she came to the church and got restored and was like super quiet, was late coming in, left early, like didn't really want to be there, but there was something so special about her. And I was like, I don't know, like I just want to love up on her. And so many people, so many women did. But it's like when you just love someone and you don't see the outside, you see their inner core of who God loves them, and you allow that person to flourish into who they really are before God. And then they become your best friend, and they just like, then they give back to the church. I'm just like, oh, like
she's leading now one of the biggest groups in the state of Washington, just pouring her out to the youth and family ministry. We're super proud of her.
That's awesome.
This quiet, timid, reserved sister, now married, and her husband leading in that capacity, brings Nicole a lot of joy, and me too, of course.
Yeah,
that's great. That's great. What advice would you give to a person who really wants to make a difference with their life, wants to make this life count and live a no regrets life?
Yeah, I think they should ask what really ticks them off, because that's what I always ask myself. I know that's kind of a backwards response, but I think for me, I've worked in hospital settings, I've worked in mental health agencies, I've heard, you hear what's going on in the situation with Lebanon right now in the Middle East, and what's going on with the Russian-Ukraine war, and what's happening at our border here between Mexico and the U.S., and just the troubling news where you hear just women being taken advantage of, kids being sold off into sex slavery. It just bothers me. And I just feel like it just gives me an angst. And so some people, I understand, they don't want to be appointed as evangelists, and that's fine. We're in a culture where maybe that's not the typical dream. I get it. Or maybe they don't want to serve in a high capacity, but what does stir you? And so when I talk to my singles, it doesn't matter how young, how old, how much money they make, what their education background is, did they go to an Ivy League school or not. I just ask them, what makes you go? And for me, it's to save souls and to literally save physical souls. Because when I have patients that come to me and tell me, hey, Pablo, I want to take my life, I put on the cap of both mental health and Christian and go, how can we save this person's life? And so that's the business I'm in. And usually when I ask, like that sister that Nicole brought up about, she loves salsa dancing, I asked her, what makes you go? And she says, I want women to feel safe, to be in an environment where they could dance, have a good time, but also not have to give up their moral convictions to be out with a man, or have a safe place to come and call home, because that's not where she grew up. And she's been through a lot of violence herself. And so we honored that. And we told her, well, why don't we do some of those events? And maybe you can instruct. And she was able to get some instructors. And it was awesome because it was so evangelistic. It was so pure. And it just brought the singles ministry together. And so that's what we love to do. And so that's my question to anyone who's listening to this podcast that is considering, what do I do with my life? What makes you tick? And go after it 100%.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it is all about giving back. I mean, the impact that we make, it makes the world of a difference, right? I mean, it's such a cliche saying, but it means so much. And the one way that we're able to pour ourselves out is if we're making sure that we're pouring into ourselves. And so the more that I have made sure that I'm taking care of, not in a way that I'm being selfish, but in a way that I am getting the sleep that I need. I am eating the food and nourishing my body that I need to. I am exercising, making sure that I have the energy that I need. Because when I don't exercise, I notice I'm groggy. It's harder to go to sleep. Like just all these things. And so I was able to just little by little go, okay, how can I take care of Nicole so that Nicole can be the person that pours out into others? Like it's absolutely possible to pour ourselves out, but then to still have in all that we need in order to continue pouring out. Like it's like I'm pouring out and then God continues to pour in my cup. And so I'm just like, it's so beautiful the way God designed it. And so it's interesting because also too, one of the things that even with Stilos ministry, just really raising up leaders, praying and really working towards how can we raise up more people to hold up the church, right? It can't just be Pablo and Nicole. It can't just be the full-time ministers. It is the people that are working the full-time jobs, that are working part-time jobs, that have a little bit of creativity, that can do something and set up decor, like just really feeling like, what is that gift that you have? What is your strength? What is your talent? And see if you can interject yourself in your local ministry. If not in your local ministry, maybe in your local community. Can you do things that are within your strengths and within what your passions are? And so, one of the things that even, if you want to follow us even on Stilos, is we're on Facebook at Stilos Ministry. And then we're Stilos Leadership on Instagram. If you message us on Instagram, the word leader or leadership, our chatbot will send you a PDF that can actually say kind of the 10 must-have essentials for having a balance and having a successful career and having a successful impact in the ministry, because it is possible, but there's ways to do it. And so we want to make that available to people.
That's awesome. Okay, so if a person wanted to find you, first of all, how do you spell Stilos?
Stylos.
Okay, so Stylos. So a person, if they're looking for you, they would just look for you on Instagram or just Google Stilos and they'd find you that way. Is there a website?
Yeah, our website is Stilos, STYLOS.world. So Stilos.world.
Okay.
There's no .com. Yep. And then we are on Instagram. That's where we're the most active right now. And it's at Stilos, STYLOS Leadership. We are on Facebook. Not a lot of content is being pushed out there yet, but you can definitely follow us. We'll definitely put some more out there. It's Stilos Ministry on Facebook. We've got some other platforms, but it's not, content really isn't out there. But if you get that, and then also too, we're building up our newsletter. So
okay, that's fantastic. I will definitely include that in the show notes so people can find you that way. Last question. You said you're a big reader. I'm a big reader too. Tell me your 3 best books you've read recently.
Oh, I'm a book reader.
Yeah.
Mind Change.
Mm-hmm.
Oh
yes.
my God. Okay. Have you read or heard of Mind Change, Rob, by chance?
I haven't.
No. Oh man. Okay. Mind Change, you guys. It's literally changed my life, total pun intended.
Mm-hmm.
It just gives a different perspective. And so it was written by Heather and Kat McKean. Their first book is Mind Change. Their second book is Metanoia Method. Metanoia Method, again, book number 2, Metanoia Method.
Okay, now that you mentioned the McKeans, I've definitely heard that through Steve Lounsbury. He had a back issue and followed her protocol and solved the problem. So it's pretty amazing.
Wow, look at that. I didn't know that story. That's incredible.
I love that.
Yeah, I love Steve, yeah.
And see, that's the thing is I've done personal work based on her protocols or program, like just some of the steps, and it is absolutely changing me. So when I say dealing with anxiety, I'm changing my anxiety. I'm not just like, coping with it and I'm going to feel better. No, like my body is physiologically changing based on what I'm actually reworking in my brain. And so in Metanoia Method, it's literally taking the word repentance, like for real, like not just like, like change your habits and change your behaviors. And that's all nice. No, it's getting down to the actual pieces of our brain. She explains in layman terms, thank you, Jesus, not scientifically, but in layman terms, how the brain works, how it affects our behaviors, who we are. And so it's like when I think of the quote, think that she says, where you go, there you are, or there you will be. And so it's like, wherever we go, if we change our environment, we don't change as humans. But so the only way we can change is if we change internally. And God literally gives us that open door. And I feel like she just gave us the life hack on how we can really change our lives. And I'm like, yes, I found it.
Yeah. I've seen the benefits of it. Honestly, Nicole's just more joyful in the morning. She just has an encouraging mood, and she makes my sandwiches when I go to work and throws in some fruit there, and it's all packaged. She gives me a nice kiss. It's like, hey, I'll send you off. So I really seen the benefits of that. That's one that I need to read too myself. Okay. A second book real quick I'll throw out is The Disciplined Life.
Ooh, yeah.
I know a lot of people, it's a short read. But I recommend it. We went over it with our church years ago. I think it was 2017, about 7 years ago.
That is an old book. Is it
But
Taylor?
it's all-
I mean, we're talking
yeah,
like that's like
yeah,
Cold War.
yes,
The
yes,
Russians
during
are
that time.
the Russians are going to take us over because they're way more disciplined than
Correct.
we are. It's
That's right.
okay. I got a
Yeah.
little story about that book because
Tell me.
I was reading it. I liked it also when I was a younger Christian, and there was an intern that I was working with who had some discipline issues. I said, "Hey, bro, I won't mention his name. You really need to read this book. It's a really good book." And so he goes, "Hey, thank you so much. It's going to help." So I started working at my desk, and I come out into my living room, and he was face down on the floor. He had fallen asleep on my floor, and he was resting his head on the book, The Disciplined Life.
Oh, I'm glad it was useful.
I wish I had a camera right there. Anyway, go ahead.
No,
Disciplined Life.
no. It's a
So
great book
great.
because, yeah, the author, what he convinced me was that sometimes when we have stress, we think it's because we have so much going on in life, and you'd be surprised how much you can handle stress if you're disciplined. And
Yes.
so sometimes people, I don't really believe we're these, in some sense, yes, are we heroic in one way? Sure, but I don't think we're these people that created something new. We're just following what the Bible says to not worry, right? To put all of our anxiety on God.
Yeah.
And one of the things that really helps us is the verse in 2 Timothy 1:7, where it talks about that we don't have the spirit of fear or timidity, but spirit of power, love, and self-discipline.
Mm.
And what's really encouraging is that I love the power part, the impact. I love the whole part of love, of course, right? We want to be connected. But the biggest thing that was missing in our lives was that discipline part. And that book really helps you to capture that spirit that if you're disciplined, your stress level will be low.
Mm.
If you're undisciplined, stress level will be out of control. And so for us, that's why we have to be disciplined. It just saves us a lot of stress.
Okay.
Yeah.
Third book.
I'll give it to Nicole
Well,
since she's the avid
I
reader.
say mind change, metanoia method, and discipline.
Okay,
life.
there we go. That's great. Well, guys,
And I
thank you
think-
so much for your time. I really appreciate you making the time, sharing. It's really amazing what you're doing, and working full-time jobs, helping singles, making a difference in people's lives. And your mindset really is very, very impressive. Thank you so much for what you're doing and for the work that you're doing on behalf of the kingdom. And I'll be praying that God continues to bless your efforts and that many people will, contact you through your Stilos leadership program. Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate your time. Thank you for having us.
This has been so great having us. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thanks for listening. Here's how you can help support the program. First, let your friends know about the podcast. Text them a link and let them know. Secondly, read and review one of my books, How to Plant and Grow a Church, or Courage, How to Make This Life Count. You can find them on Amazon.com. And what I'm hoping is that these episodes, like today, I'm going to be putting them into another book, and hopefully I'll get this out by the end of the year. Also, support the program with a gift today. The link is in the show notes. Because my goal is to inspire you to make this life count, live a no-regrets life, and multiply disciples, leaders, and churches. Have a great day, and make this life count.